Hey there, my name's Ben Everingham and I'm the director here at Pumped On Property, and in today's video I'm going to talk about how to select the right property to invest in. So we're going to talk about what the right property is to me personally, and I'll put a big disclaimer on this video. This is just my thoughts. Everyone's got a different opinion and this is not advice in relation to your situation in any way. I'm going to talk about why you would buy metro property, how to select a great suburb, how to select the right property once you find the right suburb. So the reason I'm recording this video is I've worked with around about 500 clients to buy over $150 million worth of property now. I've also bought over 10 properties in the last 8 years for myself with my wife. I don't own all of those properties now because I don't like debt, but I've paid or sold those properties to use some of that money to pay off other properties. And so this is my experiences in terms of what makes a great property to me. I think you're going to get a huge amount of value out of it, and I highly recommend that you take some notes on this. Now, this is actually part of a little series I've done, which is how to select the right market, meaning which state to invest in and which region, how to select the right suburb, which is an art form in itself once you've identified which state and which market. And now this is the final video, which is once you've identified the state, the market, the region, the suburb, then how to actually identify the right property within the suburbs. So the right property to me is based on my experiences of talking with literally 600 or 700 investors a year for the last 5 years and listening to what's worked from them. It's pretty clear when they tell you what they bought it for, what they sold it for, and the characteristics of the property or what it's worth now, to see which markets have done well and which markets haven't done well, as well as which types of properties perform better. So the first thing that's important to me is a metro market. Now, I'm a Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane guy, and maybe some of the major regional markets that sit around those cities, your Wollongongs, your Newcastles, your Sunshine Coast, your Gold Coast type things. Not so much a Bendigo, Ballarat, but maybe a Geelong type of guy. So the reason I like the metro markets is because they absolutely smash the performance of the regional markets. In fact, in the last 20 years, according to CoreLogic, metro markets being Australia's largest 7 capital cities, when compared to Australia's largest regional areas, have increased in value by over 100% more over a 20-year period than the same regional markets surrounding those cities. So very important to pick a capital city, in my opinion, because I've only got a certain number of dollars to spend. I want to get the most back that I possibly can. I also want to identify a great suburb, and for me there's a whole lot of things that make a great suburb. I'm not going to talk so much today about all the key performance indicators that I follow, but I have done other videos before on those key performance indicators that I look at when deciding if a suburb is great or not. I'm going to get more sort of broad today in this video and talk about, a great suburb mean great schools, definitely top third of the, how schools are ranked, state schools and private schools in each state and capital city in Australia. Definitely talking about being around suburbs where the top third of schools are, which ultimately mean wealthier people and higher paying people, as well as the international people that are prepared to pay more money for properties in the future and families want to be. I also, in terms of what makes a great suburb to me, is a suburb with a train station in it, either on the water or as close to the CBD as you can possibly afford. Now, once we get, we've identified the suburb and we break it down into the property level, not every suburb's the same. And what I mean by that is there's premium pockets and there's cheap pockets. There's main roads that you want to completely avoid, where it's busy because of cars, there's trains behind it, there's commercial, there's cemetery, there's schools. Like, you just avoid all of those roads because it's going to cost you at least 1% a year for the next 15 years of the hold period on your property. And you've got to remember that not everyone wants to live in properties from a rent perspective or a future buyer or reseller perspective, or future owner of the property in the future perspective. So if you really want to get the best gains, you've got to look at the best streets in the suburb. And then the pockets, like I mentioned a moment ago, I want to buy where the more premium properties are being sold. I used to think it was good enough to just buy a cheap property in a great suburb. It's not. That mentality has probably cost me at least 2% a year. And if you think about a local suburb close to you that's actually expensive, you know that a quality home might sell for $1 million on a quiet street, and a quality home on a cheap street might sell for 800K. So there's a huge difference, and over time that gap increases. Like I said, I want a great school, train line, on the water or close to the CBD in a premium pocket. I want a quiet street. I don't want any housing commission in the street if possible, but if there is, less than 5% of the houses. Definitely don't want to be next door to housing commission or across the road from it. I want to do flood checks and fire checks, and I want to make sure there's no bushfire or flood overlays that I have to be aware of. I don't want to be buying on the main roads, the trains, the cemeteries, the commercial areas and all of that other stuff like I mentioned, or on the schools. When I get all of that higher level stuff in relation to the property under control, what I do know and what I like to buy is a quality home in great structural condition without any building or pest related issues. I want to make sure that there's no do my searches properly and make sure there's no mining activity under the ground or any subsidence issues or any weird soil types that is going to destroy my property, or weird issues in the area. I want a property that's got large bedrooms, so at least 3.3 metre bedrooms with a master bedroom that's as big as possible, 4x4, 5x5, the bigger the better. I do like to buy properties that have at least 2 bathrooms, because that's where things seem to be going. The average household income size has increased in Australia. Recently there's 2.6, soon to be 2.8 kids per household again, so population is rising naturally in Australia again. I want a nice big open plan as well. Like, I want to be able to walk into the house and have a kitchen, dining, living area that flows onto a deck or an alfresco area, because that's the way that we live as modern people now. We congregate in very small pockets of the house, and we don't need the separated areas like we used to as much. Sometimes 2 living areas can be great for families long term. I've got 3 kids myself, and it's important to me for the kids to have a space sometimes, or more for mummy to have a space away from the kids sometimes. When I'm buying for me personally, I look for properties that have either an east facing or north facing backyard. The reason is it's so much nicer to live in those properties, so being aware of that's good. I look for easements on the properties, meaning manholes or sewer lines or funny positions of water mains and things like that, just in case I ever want to build something in the back. It makes it a bit harder and more expensive to do that. So there's some of the major things that I look for when considering a property. And when I'm buying personally, I'm a bit more of an active investor, so if I'm building a brand new place, I want to make sure it ticks all of those boxes mentioned, and I'm very thoughtful with the design, the finishes, the fixtures, the colours. If I'm buying an existing property, a lot of our clients like low maintenance, set and forget properties, as do I, which is why I sometimes build new. But if I am in the mood for a bit of a project, or I want to make some money in the short term to be able to release equity to buy again, I'll find something that's below market value that might need a bit of a cosmetic upgrade. I'm not talking about crazy structural stuff, just paint, carpets, blinds, lights, a bit of a tidy up in the yard, maybe a bit of a tidy up in the bathroom and the kitchen. Nothing crazy, just that simple sort of stuff too. So I'm the one that wins on the property, and those ugly sorts of properties put off a lot of people as well. Sometimes removing a simple wall between a kitchen and living room, or a kitchen and an outdoor area, can make a massive difference to the livability, and therefore the rent that you attract, as well as the future resale value and type of person that will buy it off you. So I hope you've got a little bit of value from this video. I hope it's explained how to select the right property, buy the right market, buy a house, because we know that they outperform units significantly over time, as metro markets do regional markets. Buy a great suburb. Sometimes spending a little bit more will make you a lot more long term. Buy a large piece of land, the biggest possible. good schools, good trains, and all of those other things that are important. As close to the city as you can afford, as close to the water in the city that you can afford as well. So I appreciate your time and attention. If you are thinking of buying a property this year and you'd like to talk to someone about your plans or create a bit of a strategy for the year, I'd love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. You can jump over to my website, www.pumpedonproperty, and book that session, which will be either with me or my brother Simon. We'd love to learn more about where you are and where you're looking to go, and just help you get a bit more focused and a bit more educated on the market. So thanks for your time and have a great day. Bye.